Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16, starting with verse 13. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Well, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the other prophets. But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by man, by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter. And on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he warned his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Christ. This is the gospel of Christ. Jesus, the Son of Man. And I think, he's been given a pretty heavy-duty calling, hasn't he? Going to be the Savior of the world. All the prophecies of the Old Testament spoke of the suffering that would come to the Messiah. Probably grew up with his mama telling him, "Oh, you're the Messiah," telling him the story of what happened at his birth. It's a pretty heavy burden to carry. When he gets to Caesarea Philippi, this city is known as one of the wonders of the ancient world. It was Herod the Great's tribute to Caesar. And historically, the historians would say that it was brilliantly white, marble, and it was just an incredibly beautiful city, that when the sun would be setting from across the sea, it would glow and change colors from the ocean. It would have been this magnificent, amazing, beautiful city. This pinnacle of, Herod the Great. Pinnacle of man, what man can achieve. I can imagine Jesus standing there looking over this city. Maybe looking at his ragtag bunch of guys who have been following him around. I can imagine him having a moment where he's having a bit of a crisis of faith. Could it be that Jesus is having a little bit of a crisis of identity here? A crisis of faith. And see, I think that he is seeking confirmation from the Spirit. I think he's at this moment where there's some doubt there. He's a bit afraid. This is a big thing. From here, he's going to Jerusalem, and it isn't going to get any easier from this point on. There's this moment of doubt. You ever had a moment of doubt? You ever have a moment where you think, am I really up to this? Can I really pull this off? Do I really have what it takes? Can anybody relate to Jesus? So just being there. So he says, "Hey guys, what are people saying about me? What are people saying about me?" Well, what does flesh and blood mean? What means people? Right? What are people saying about me? Do you know there have been more books written about the subject of Jesus Christ and Christianity than any other subject in the history of the world? You know that? In the last 200 years, there have been more books written about Jesus than any other topic. It's pretty, so men have a lot to say about Jesus. There's no shortage of opinions about Jesus, right? And I can look around the room and I can say, well, Ara says this, or Andrew says this. And see, this is sort of the easy question, isn't it? Because this is sort of like the test. See, this question allows the disciples to simply report what they've heard, right? So Some say you're Elijah or Jeremiah or one of the prophets. Some say you're John the Baptist. Obviously they didn't know much about John the Baptist, the day he was dead. Some might be saying, I don't know who this guy is. He's somebody, but I don't really know who he is or what he is. Some of them might have been thinking, some are saying you're a threat. I'm hearing some talk. Some of these religious guys are getting uncomfortable with you. Some say you're a troublemaker. Some say you're a con man. Some say you're a zealot. Some people just say you're playing crazy. People have a lot of things they can say about Jesus. There's no shortage of opinions. Just walk down the street. You ever have a conversation with somebody about Jesus? I just invite you, as you go out of here today, you go up to somebody, over lunch or something, ask them the question, what are people saying about Jesus? You can get all kinds of opinions from people. That's the easy question. I used to get this all the time when I was working on the streets. I'd have these conversations all the time. Well, somebody said this, and then so-and-so said this, and, we have all these debates. But see, then, the thing about flesh and blood answers is that they tend to be based upon what's popular at the time. Okay? Now, this isn't my whale oil blog or anything. I was just thinking, if you ever heard by some of these guys that try to answer questions, they answer with flesh and blood ways, because flesh and blood answers are often shallow. They're sort of cowardly and indecisive. And you're going to hear a lot of these over the next few weeks, right? The election's coming. You're going to hear a lot of flesh and blood answers. They're going to ask a question, and you're going to hear some shallow retort, some party line little thing. Nobody's really going to say what they really think. They're going to say what will get them elected, right? And this is what happens. This is what the flesh and blood stuff does. This is what people answers are. So when Jesus says, what do people say? You can pick the most popular thing. They could have all picked the most popular thing. They could have all been standing there saying, well, I want to pick the one that's going to make Jesus feel the best about himself. And maybe you can think that maybe that's what Peter was thinking. But see, I don't believe that's what Peter was thinking at all. Because what Jesus needs is something very powerful, something very specific. He needs to hear the voice of the Spirit. So Jesus asked the second question. And this is the most important question. Who do you say that I am? Man, you can just see him twisted. Oh, crikey. Who do I say he is? And then Simon answers, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And what does Jesus hear in his voice? He hears clarity, courage, and conviction. Brothers and sisters, this is the voice of the Spirit. Clarity, courage, and conviction. As soon as he hears this, Peter recognizes the voice of his Father. He recognizes the power of the Spirit that's coming from Peter. He says, this isn't a flesh and blood answer. Peter, blessed are you. You're blessed with the Spirit right now, because you're not giving me some vague, powerless, cowardly answer. You're giving me an answer that is filled with courage, clarity, and conviction. And it's important that we understand that this is how we recognize the voice of the Spirit. Whatever whatever questions you have from the Spirit, or whatever leading you're seeking from the Spirit, it will be, when the Spirit speaks, filled with courage, clarity, and conviction. Whatever the next step is that God is asking you to take, it will require courage, clarity, and conviction. Do you get this? Because God's not playing games with us. Spirit of God is not just trying to, hope we can limp and fumble our way through life. The Spirit desires to lead us. Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. Imagine if you're a shepherd and you've got a bunch of sheep out there and you're not quite sure where you want to take them. Not quite sure where the farm is. Oh, well, just kind of, maybe we'll hang out over here today and hopefully none of them fall. Didn't know it was a cliff there. Oh, man, lost a couple there. That's not who our shepherd is. Our shepherd leads us. But listen, the leading of the Spirit requires what? Courage, clarity, and conviction. Peter's response is not from people. It's not flesh and blood. It is a Spirit-driven answer. And this is why Jesus says, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven." Now I want to look at those three words for a second. This is what the nature of the Spirit and the nature of the spiritual believer is. Okay? Courage. The Spirit gives you the ability and the willingness to confront fear, pain, danger, or uncertainty. In other words, it gives you the ability to take the risk. Now, I don't know what risk the Spirit is asking you to take. But I will tell you what, if you ever want to partner with God, it's going to get risky. There'll be a risk involved. Okay? Clarity is the ability to clearly see, understand, and comprehend a concept or a situation. There'll be some clarity here. You'll understand what it is and why it is that God is calling you to do it. Does that make sense? You'll have an understanding of why this is important. And the third thing is this. There'll be a conviction. And the conviction is the ability to deeply believe and be firmly convinced of the truth. Courage, clarity, conviction. Say it with me.
Courage, clarity, conviction.
These are the hallmarks of the Spirit. This is what Jesus heard in Peter's response. Do you get it? He could hear the courage, the clarity, and the conviction. There was no doubt at this moment. This question is the moment of the decision for Jesus' disciples. Because it was no longer about what other people think. It was no longer about what other people are doing. It comes down to, what about you? What about you? See, this is the one question that each of us need to answer. Each of us need to be confronted with this. Who do you say that I am? And what if this question was asked to you today? Well, I'm asking it. What do you think? What's your response? Now, the amazing thing is this. This is actually an incredibly important and liberating question. We should ask ourselves this question every day. If this is a question that scares you, you obviously don't really understand Jesus. You don't know what love Jesus has for you. You don't know the plans that God has for you. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope. Plans to give you a future. Plans that you will live your life with courage, with clarity, and with conviction. Right? This is what God wants for you. Why? Why is this an important question to ask? Who is Jesus? Because Jesus is who you need Him to be. You understand that? See, the Spirit revealed this to Peter. In that moment, Peter needed to know that the one he was following was worth the price he was paying. When you think of it, who do you say that I am? Well, I've given up everything to follow you. I've laid everything on the line to follow you. He doesn't say, you better be the Son of the Christ, the Son of the living God. Right? The Spirit comes and reveals to him, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. He needed Jesus to be the Christ, the Son of the living God. Because no one else would do. No one else was worthy of his life. See, the Spirit gave him the courage, the clarity, and conviction to confess and believe. And Peter wasn't wrong. But you know what? Who do you what I say. I say, Jesus, you are what I need. Jesus is my counselor when I need wisdom. Jesus is my great physician who heals my wounded soul and my broken body. Jesus is my anchor when I'm in the middle of the raging emotional storm. Jesus is my solid rock, and He helps me stand in the face of adversity and doubt. Jesus is my way when I am lost. Jesus is the truth when I am deceived. Jesus is my comforter when I am upset and worried. Jesus is the bread of life who feeds my hungry, starving soul. Jesus is living water to my dry and thirsty soul. Jesus is my forgiveness when I sin and fail. Jesus is my greatest encourager when I succeed and win. Who do you need Jesus to be today? Because that's what Jesus will be. Who do you say that He is? Well, what situation are you facing? What wall has come before you? What fear has gripped your soul? Jesus will be what you need Him to be. He will help you. He will walk with you through. Does this make sense? It's hard to pin down Jesus. And the moment you think you've got Him pinned down and you think that you've got Him all sorted, you've got Him figured out, you know exactly who He is once and for all, He'll surprise you. He'll show up as somebody else. He'll show up as the one you need. So this is a very important question each one of us need to ask ourselves every day. Who do I say you are? Who is Jesus? Well, to me, Jesus is everything. I've been summed up. So who do you say Jesus is today? Who do you need Jesus to be for you today? Can you relate to Jesus' self-doubt? And do you recognize the Spirit's voice of courage, clarity, and conviction? And the Apostle Paul in Romans 12 was writing about being transformed by the renewing of your mind. This is what he's talking about. To know that Christ is with you. Don't let yourself get caught up with flesh and blood thoughts, but be spiritually minded. Let the Spirit give you that courage, clarity, and conviction to make that decision, to live that life, to move forward with Christ, to let Christ be who He needs to be for you today. I pray that as you meet with Christ in the Eucharist, you would carry to Him, and you reach your hand out and receive the host